Hi there. This is another brief introductory video to the HL7 FHIR class. This one is an introduction to Postman, and my name is Terry Sippelschmidt. Postman is a free application, and it's very useful for building APIs or application programmer interfaces. We're going to walk through Postman, but just a few details quickly. Scripts can be imported into Postman, and we're going to give you a Postman script to save you some time. Postman understands the difference in API models, including FHIR, and so it is able to build FHIR APIs for you. And finally, remember to always launch Postman from your Johns Hopkins safe desktop. Now we're going to go ahead and do that. So I've already logged into my.jh.edu, and I've gone through the authentication process, and I've clicked on My Cloud. That gets me into the Citrix VPN. I went ahead and I launched my safe desktop, and that gets me to the safe desktop. Now, on the safe desktop, I went ahead and I downloaded Postman. This download, you can either just search in Google, or it's also on the Getting Started page in Blackboard. So I went ahead and I downloaded Postman. So let's go ahead and launch Postman now. First, we're going to take a quick look at the overall application after it comes up. Then we'll get into a few of the FHIR details. Okay, so these tabs here along the left-hand side, there's one tab called Collections, and these are collections of saved APIs. We're going to get you started with one called FHIR calls. Some of these examples that I have in here, which is a lot more than you'll initially start out with, includes one called list metadata, another one called get authorization token. We have list patients and list organizations and list patients by organization and list patients by medical record number. And creating patients, we have all sorts of tools that we're going to go through, exercises we'll go through over the course of this class. The API tab is how you can start a separate tab to work with APIs, so that you get the parameter keys and you get the values. And you can specify your HTTP verb, which is going to probably be a get, a post, or a put if you're using HL7 FHIR. Environment is an environment variable. And we'll talk about this again in a second. We don't have any mock servers, and monitors are kind of cool. This is a way for you to set up automated testing and check afterwards. In a history, if you've accidentally made mistakes in some of your scripts, you can always come back and revert to your old history. Let's go back to collections. To get started for your FHIR calls collection, we're going to have you import a file. The import button is over here. We'll send you the file which needs to be imported. Then it'll allow you to get started. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to try to list the metadata. The metadata is the metadata about the server. This is true for all servers and all FHIR applications, that they respond to metadata calls. What this will give you is free of any type of security, so it should always work. A metadata call will give you a capability statement. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's always HTTPS. It's the endpoint that you're looking for, in this case, informatics.azurehealthcareapis.com. and the word metadata, with M being uppercase. I'm going to go ahead and hit send. And I always use pretty, which means that it lines up all of my brackets in JSON for me. Now you can see that I got a status response of 200. A status response of 200, anything in the 200s in HTTP is good. So what this does is it gives me a capability statement of everything that the Microsoft server is able to do in JSON format. I'm not really going to read that right now, so much as another thing that I use this for is it's a ping. Do I have the right URL? If I can ping it and I can get a response of 200 back and I can get a capability statement, I know that I've made a connection to the server. The next thing that we're going to have you do is we're going to have you go through get authorization token. The get authorization token is something that you'll upload the script, and you're going to go over here and you're going to click send. What that does is it'll send a bearer token to the Microsoft Azure server. So you can see that we got a response of 200. That's good. So what we've done now is we've established the security between our application on our safe desktop and the Microsoft server. But there's a trick. You have to go over here to environment, and it created an environment variable called new environment. And you have to click and enable that environment variable and set it active for all future calls, or your security doesn't actually work. If you ever get a 401 unauthorized, just go click this get authorized token and hit send again because they expire. So just that you know, when you get a 401, click authorize get token and hit send. So now we're going to take a look at the actual API calls themselves. I'm going to come down here to list patients. So this top part is what you're going to send to the server, and this bottom part down here is the response. So we'll get back to the response in a minute. As I said, a lot of these are going to be either get, post, which is create, or put, which is update. In FHIR, you have HTTPS, you have the endpoint, and you have the resource name. The resource name in this case is patient. If I hit send now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to query the FHIR server because query is a get for all patients. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit send. Now, if this was a real EHR system, there'd be an awful lot of patients. Because I have it set to pretty for the response, it cleans up my response so it makes it much more readable. You'll notice that I get a status of 200, which means that it worked. And if I scroll down, you can see that this is also a JSON response. And if you watch the JSON video, you can see that you have all of the key and value pairs. You have the curly brackets, which represent an object. And you also have all the commas, which represent the next piece of data. Now, if I go back up to here, I can also set query parameters within my API, what I call the server. For example, let's go to query patients by last name. So in here, the family name, I'm going to click on a key to enable it. The family name in here is the key. These keys are defined by HL7 FHIR. The value is the value that I'm looking for within my database or my FHIR server. So I'm going to click both family, and I happen to know there's a family in there with the name family bundle test. Probably could be Smith or something. And I'm going to click a given name of Bob. You'll notice that these names are case dependent, whereas the values are not case dependent. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit send. You'll notice that I have a response of 200. That's good. You'll notice that I have another resource down here called a bundle, which is a response. And again, it's in JSON format. Let's try a different one. Okay, so here I have the organizations. So these are going to be all the organizations that we've defined. If I come down here, you can see that in the response, I have several different organizations which I've defined. These organizations, here's the resource type, which says it's an organization. And if I scroll down a bit further, you can say that the name of the organization we've created is Johns Hopkins School of Medicine FHIR Training Program. And this is part of a match search. So you can see how as you go through and you edit and that particular organization is true, it's active. You can see as you go through here how you are able to interpret the response. Now let's go create a patient. Create is a post. So I come up here and I select post, HTTPS. Here's my endpoint, and I'm going to create a patient. So my parameter keys, I don't really need that many because the parameter keys really come into play in a query, but they can also come in creates and updates, but not for the simple ones. We're not going to start there. However, if I'm going to create a patient, I have to tell the server about my information. And so I'm going to click on body. I'm going to make this part of the screen a little bit bigger. And you can see that here I have a resource type. This is JSON again. I have a resource type of patient. It's true, it's active. The name is the official name. The family name is Smith. The given name is Bob. And you can see that I've got some telephone information in here, gender, date of birth. He's not deceased. He's got an address and a city. And I can go ahead and I can hit send. Now this time, I'm going to make this part of the screen a little bit bigger. This time you can see that I have a status of 201, which is created, which means that a create was successful. The response down here is going to tell me what it is that it created. And you can see that again, it's JSON. It is giving me an ID, which is a computer ID for this particular object so that the computer can locate that object and only that one object within the database. It tells you that it's the first version of it, and it tells you the last time that it was updated, which is only a few seconds ago. It tells you all the information that we've already given it so we could verify it if we wanted to. And if I had done several at one time, it would actually give me a list. So my only other comment on these is, especially when you're doing creates, there's 2 more buttons you want to look at. I usually set this to raw. Make sure and set this to JSON. The other examples are XML, JavaScript. You want JSON. And then finally, there's a button over here called Beautify, and Beautify is really handy as you begin to edit JSON files, JSON text in here. If you're not sure if your arrays and your objects are lining up, hit Beautify, and it'll create these little lines for you so that you can tell which brackets are matched to which brackets. So on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you an overview of what JSON and Postman look like, so that when we begin to use this in the class, you'll have seen it once before. And we really look forward to seeing you in class. Have a great day.